Chattisfying.
The reason why I don't like that review, of all the reviews on mine channel, it's probably one of the shortest ones. It's only just under 3 minutes long. It's one of the shortest reviews. I feel like I kind of pussied out a little bit in it. I kind of said, well, I can't really review it because I love it too much. I don't know if you noticed that. My kind of line with it, and what I kind of wish that I had said, is that there's not really anything that I could say that hasn't been said a million times before. It's probably the most over-reviewed game in the entire world. Like, how many 2-hour retrospectives of this game are there on YouTube? There's more than one, I can tell you. I've watched most of them. You know,
You've watched all of them.
you know, so I did get to the point when I was writing it where I was like, I don't know what to say, so I kind of just pussied out and didn't really say much, and that's kind of why I don't really like this review that I did. Having said that, I don't think any of my points were invalid. Like, I've seen bad reviews of this game and they're not wrong. You know, a lot of people moan about how long it takes to do so many things.
Who's writing a bad review about Ocarina of Time?
Aaron from Game Grumps.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember. He used to do
I
forget the name of the series, but he used to do a series where it was like he'd review games, but it was funny. And he absolutely destroyed Ocarina of Time. It's funny. It's worth watching.
Oh, it was funny. It was fun watching
Sequelitis. That's it. Thank you, Captain Mangles. Yeah, that's it. It was called Sequelitis. Look it up. Ocarina of Time Sequelitis. It's really funny. But he moans about Ocarina of Time a lot. But it's really funny. And one of his like big issues, and it is true, is there's a lot of waiting around in the game. There's a lot of like you're pushing this block and you have to wait for the block to move. Oh, you need to be in this place at night time. Wow, now you're gonna have to wait for a couple of minutes for it to be night time. And all this kind of thing. There's a lot of waiting around. Even the combat, there's a lot of waiting around in the combat. The combat basically boils down. Almost every single enemy, you have to wait for it to be open. The Stalfos is a really good example of this. Like the Stalfos, you fight in the Stalfos, you're waiting. You basically wait for the time that you can attack it without being attacked back. Like all of the combat basically in the game is you just waiting for your time to attack. Maybe exceptions that would be the bosses or some of the bosses, but generally like all of the normal enemies, it just boils down to you having finding the right time to attack. So there is a lot of waiting around in the game. I also think that there are moments where the game is really, really obtuse. I think some of the older Zeldas have always suffered from this. And the new
play Master Quest then.
Well, I liked Master Quest, but I liked Master Quest because I already knew Ocarina of Time like inside out. If you go into Master Quest as a newbie, just I don't know, just leave home, never come back. You know, it will be an awful experience. Just don't do it. I mean, it's a pretty bad experience if you are a massive fan of Ocarina. I don't know how I enjoyed it, to be honest, looking on it now. There's a few really obtuse moments. The bit that really got me as a kid, and it slightly annoys me every time I see a new player get it immediately. Admittedly, I was only 11 years old, but Ruto's letter, I couldn't find it. I literally spent 3 weeks. I'm so stuck, and I even knew it had to have something to do with going through the hole into Lake Hylia. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. I was, where do I go? And in the end, I think someone had to tell me. 3 weeks I was stuck on that. 3 weeks.
I mean, to be fair, you were 11, so...
Yeah, I was 11. I had nothing else to do.
Do you want to talk about it? I feel like this is some deeply grounded stuff that you can
look,
get out of there, you know?
Mellar, that's me. Look, Manners, I'll talk to my therapist about it, okay?
All right. So, Ruto's letter.
Children have small heads and therefore can't think. No, it is true. But yeah, it's just one of those things. But I do think that's not the only moment where it's not immediately obvious that you know what you're supposed to do. Even though you have Navi, you have Saria that you can call on if you really want to. Loads of people don't realise you can do that as well. You can play Saria's song and she'll give you a little hint. Loads of people don't know you can do that. And all this kind of thing. Yet it's one of these things where, like, because a lot people call it the greatest game of all time, right? And the thing is, the greatest game of all time is always going to change because new games are coming out, right? But I do genuinely feel, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, but if you take into account when it came out, it probably is at least one of the best games that ever came out. It broke new ground to such an extent that even now, like we're still feeling the effects of it. You know, like when it came out and everyone loved it, everyone wanted to copy it. Everyone wanted to copy it. Like the gaming landscape would not be the same without Ocarina of Time now. Like, if you've ever played a game where you push a button to lock on, Ocarina did that first. You know, I'm not making it up. You know, that's literally a thing. Ocarina did that first. I even said in the review, like, Z Target was new. You know, and they kind of defined a 3D adventure for what was really the first time, and it's brilliant. It's you know, for the time that it came out. But, and this is where because I've had a few chats to Tsukonami about this game, and also I watched Angry Angel play some of this game, and they don't like it.
Really?
They don't like it. Suko actually said he hates it.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I know. And I've been thinking about this. What was it that Suko said?
I do remember him saying that the game.
Everyone.
Like, I legitimately remember him saying that, like, he was so used to newer games, like, moving faster.
Yes.
That he thought that this felt like a freaking slog, which honestly is fair.
Absolutely. He said a lot of it, in fact, was the fact that everyone in chat knew what was going on. This is actually something that Angry Angel said as well. She felt like the only one that was like not in the know, which meant that she felt.
I feel like that's a Twitch thing, though. Like, if you play any game that has a dedicated fan base, they're gonna bombard you with information, and it's gonna skew your opinion of the experience.
Never played maybe for the first time with a Twitch chat nowadays. Like,
oh god, yes, like, yes.
People are gonna rile you up just for you not knowing every single thing that's in the freaking game. Like, the exact same thing as Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, absolutely. But basically, I think it sort of comes down to the fact that if you're not already in the know, the game kind of expects you to know things. And because the gaming space has moved on so much since then, it's just hard to go back to, because you kind of, there's all of these quality of life upgrades that have gradually been added just to games in general since then, that obviously you go back there, they're not there anymore. And I might not understand so much if I hadn't had the exact same experience less than 6 months ago with Link to the Past, which is the game in the series before this. I played Link to the Past for the first time about 6 months ago, and I freaking hated it. And it's because I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Was that the one that was on the Game Boy?
No, it's on the SNES.
Yeah,
on the SNES. What was the one that was on Game Boy?
Yeah, that was Link's
the first
Awakening.
one I played. That's the first Zelda game I played.
That was an interesting one. That was the third one that came out, I think. But yeah, honestly, I just think it's difficult to go back to older games in general, because we've all gotten so used to all of these nice quality of life upgrades that going back to games that don't have it is really jarring. And I got really quite annoyed with Link to the Past. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying it's a bad game at all, but it didn't gel with me, and I'm sure it didn't gel with me for the same reason that Ocarina didn't gel with Tsukonami and Angry Angel. It's because you sort of go back to these things and everyone's like, oh, this thing is obvious, but of course it's obvious. All these people in chat have all played it 100 times like I have, but if you're playing it for the first time, it's not necessarily obvious, and some, like I say, can be quite obtuse, so you're sitting there not having any fucking idea what's going on. It can be quite punishing. Definitely, I found Link to the Past punishing. It was incredibly easy to die, and it took ages to come back from a death. And I do think that certainly in dungeons, Ocarina of Time is very punishing if you die, because you go straight back to the beginning of the whole dungeon. Like,
there's no checkpoints.
You retain your progress, but you still have to go through the rest of the dungeon. Which, if you don't know what you're doing, it's your first playthrough, you can die a lot of times. And it worked back in the day because, like I said earlier, you're one person with like only a few games. So you get a game and it's got to last you. So I was stuck on the game for 3 weeks. If I was stuck on a game for 3 weeks now, do you think I'd still be playing it? I'd play a different game. And it's exactly what was it? It was either Tsukunami or no, Angry Angel. I saw her literally say this in chat today. She was like, "I've got other games to play. You know, I'm not going to faff around with this game if it's going to waste my time." But back then, we didn't have any other games to play. So if it was going to waste your time, great, all the better, because then it's going to be fun for longer. So I think it's very much a product of its time. I understand why people don't like it. I do think it's disappointing when people don't like it. And I do feel, all right, if you want to at me, this is fine. But if you don't get to at least the Forest Temple, the end of the Forest Temple, if you quit before that, I don't feel like you've given it a good enough try. That's just my opinion. Tsukunami did get past the Forest Temple.
Oh, did he not finish the game?
He didn't finish the game, but he got up to... he completed the Water Temple and quit after the Water Temple, and I was really surprised.
I can see a slight connection there.
Yeah, but I was like, I literally said to him, like, you've done the hardest part. It's you know, it's all good from here. And he was like, no, I'm done. No, fair enough.
So I do want to respond to what you're saying. Like, it came out in a different time. I think a lot of what you're describing is not the time that it came out, but the age you were. If a 10-year-old now would open Ocarina of Time, would he have the same experience as you would do as a 30-year-old?
I'm afraid I don't agree. I don't agree purely because we didn't have many games back then. Like, even a 10-year-old is going to have access to lots of games these days. If a 10-year-old gets bored with a game, they are going to play a different game. They're not just going to keep trying.
Maybe. I think that depends on like how many games they actually have. But yeah.
But when you consider like how many games can you play on Steam for free? How many games can you buy for less than £3? You know.
Yeah, that's true. I will say, like, I've actually had like a friend of mine play Ocarina of Time like very recently for the first time as well. It was back when the PC port was like very new. His major problem was actually the camera, because he was so used to modern 3D cameras where like turning around the camera and stuff. And that was before the port actually had like free cam as well.
But yeah, just to sort of loop the entire thing back to that thing that I said I was going to loop back to, what that Burton said about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom appealing to youngsters. That's it. That's literally it. Like the new games don't just appeal, I think, to the youngsters, but they kind of appeal to gamers in general, where the gaming space is now, which is probably why they're not going to go back to the old stuff, because it doesn't appeal to the gamers as they are at the moment, for all of the reasons that I've just described over the last 10-15 minutes. So it kind of all loops together. So in conclusion, and I'm going to hate myself for saying it because it's going to make myself old, it is objectively a fantastic game. It's getting old now, and the new stock don't like it, generally speaking. But us oldies, we still love it because we remember.
Chattisfied.